And our journey towards this judgment began back in, I think, 2021 when Sushma reached out to us expressing grave concerns about clinics aggressively promoting stem cell therapy as a cure for autism. Since हम लीगल प्रोफेशनल्स हैं, लॉयर्स हैं, वी एक्चुअली लैक्ड द टेक्निकल मेडिकल एक्सपर्टीज टू चैलेंज दिस ऑल बाय आवरसेल्व्स. तो हमने एक इंटेंसिव पीरियड ऑफ रिसर्च और कंसल्टेशन किया. वी स्पोक विद डॉक्टर्स फ्रॉम एम्स एंड अदर मेडिकल इंस्टीट्यूशंस through our broader network. We also took suggestions from the group present here, including Sushma, Parul, Uma, Vibha, and others, and they provided the context and the scientific grounding that we actually needed to file this petition. It was actually a very collaborative effort which culminated in a petition. We were supported by our esteemed panel lawyer, Mr. Siddharth Nath, जिन्होंने ये petition file भी किया, and he is the one who argued the matter for us. It gives me immense pleasure to be here today, 4 years later, following the landmark judgment that we got on January 30th, this past January 30th. And our very objective of today's webinar is to unpack how this ruling shifts the landscape from exploitation of this particular therapy to, portraying it as a cure for autism towards a more evidence-based care. एंड मेनली इसका इम्प्लीकेशन ये था कि कोई डेफिनेटिव लीगल चेक इसका नहीं था, और अब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये बोला है कि इट इज देयर इज अ कमर्शियल जो यूज ऑफ स्टेम सेल थेरेपी है उस पे बैन कर दिया है सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने. वी विल गो इनटू मोर डिटेल्स अबाउट द इम्प्लीकेशंस ऑफ द जजमेंट व्हेन आई एक्चुअली स्टार्ट डिसमेंटलिंग द लीगल एस्पेक्ट्स, and we'll see how this will become, something that really helps vulnerable families who are at the risk of, sometimes it is important to have legal check and something that kind of helps us to understand why something need not be done in a particular way. And while the matter actually remains part heard का मतलब ये होता है कि मैटर अभी तक फाइनल नहीं है और हम वेट कर रहे हैं कुछ चीजों का. So the Supreme Court has given 4 weeks time to one of the respondents, जो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हेल्थ एंड फैमिली वेलफेयर है, उनको लिखित में कुछ कंप्लायंस का बताना है हमें. सो दिस इज अ सब्जुडिस मैटर, तो लेट्स होप दैट we get something concrete from them as well. But now we look forward to diving deeper into the more specific findings of the judgment. But firstly, I am honored to introduce the remarkable panel of experts joining us today to unpack this particular judgment, and we'll know what this judgment actually means for the future of ethical care in India. So, we are joined today by a multidisciplinary group of experts who are instrumental in this journey along with us. Sushma Nagarkar, who is a managing trustee of the Yash Charitable Trust and a driving force behind this petition. Dr. Uma Ladiwala, a renowned neuroscientist and stem cell researcher who serves as a consultant for the Yash Charitable Trust. Ms. Parul Kumtha, co-founder and trustee of the Forum for Autism, who brings a vital advocacy perspective. Dr. Vibha Krishnamurthy, developmental pediatrician and founder of the Ummeed Child Development Center. She's a leader in the neurodevelopmental care space. Dr. Sanjay Nagral, celebrated surgeon and chairperson of the Forum for Medical Ethics. Sanjay is going to help us go into deeper into the ethical dimensions of clinical practice of stem cell therapy. I now request Dr. Vibha Krishnamurthy. Thank you, Vibha, for kindly agreeing to moderate this session for us. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karuvaki. And I cannot tell you how excited I am that we are at this point having this discussion regarding the judgment. I'll be asking some of my questions to our panelists in English and will add some more. लेकिन अगर किसी को भी हिंदी में अनुवाद की ज़रूरत है, मुझे प्लीज़ पूछ लें, चैट में लगा दें या फिर अनम्यूट करके मुझे पूछ लें. जहाँ तक हो सके मैं अनुवाद करती जाऊंगी, अगर जो मेन पॉइंट्स हैं उनको संक्षेप में. So I'd like to begin with inviting Sushma to tell us a little bit about the journey. When did this whole issue of stem cell therapy as a cure for autism catch your interest? When did you see this happening? Why did it worry the folks at Yash Charitable Trust? And when did you decide to make it legal? In other words, इस कहानी को शुरू से हमें बताइए कि हमें पता चले कि ये कैसे शुरू हुआ ये सब कुछ, और फाइनली आपने लीगल एक्शन लेने का निश्चय क्यों किया?
I'm going to try Hindi, so forgive me. Um, ये जो 2015 में फोरम फॉर ऑटिज्म ने एक सेमिनार ऑर्गेनाइज किया था इन बॉम्बे। वहाँ पे देयर वाज अ पैनल ऑफ एक्सपर्ट डॉक्टर्स, और कोई जो some of whom can't do this, some of whom were for stem cell therapy as a cure, and most of whom were talking about the non-scientific use of it, sort of that there was no research behind it. That was the first kind of sorry. That was, if you can hear me now, please say yeah. So that was the first Indian sort of exposure from my end. I'd just come back from the US and so on. Yash Charitable Trust had just started. But more than that, over the years, as we formed, यश चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट का दो हिस्सा है। एक है स्किलिंग और एम्प्लॉयमेंट के लिए हम काम करते हैं फॉर न्यूरो डाइवर्जेंट एडल्ट्स, और दूसरा हिस्सा जो है वो है एडल्ट सपोर्ट केंद्र, उसका नाम है। और उसमें ये जो पैनल अभी है और कोई पार्टिसिपेंट्स है ये वेबिनार में, हम सब मिलके ये आस्क में काम करते थे, काउंसलिंग, मेंटल हेल्थ और बाकी जो इश्यूज है वो टैकल करने के लिए। इसमें बार बार फोरम फॉर ऑटिज्म में और मेरी तरफ भी, मतलब लोग आते थे, फैमिलीज आते थे कंसल्टिंग के लिए कि ये स्टेम सेल थेरेपी हम कर रहे हैं।
Sorry to interrupt. Could you get a little closer to the mic? Some people
Sure.
are still finding it hard to hear you. Yeah, maybe just hold it closer to your mouth. Thanks.
Is this better?
Oh, way better.
ओके। तो लोग, हमारे फैमिलीज हमारे पास आते थे, बोथ फोरम फॉर ऑटिज्म में जा रहे थे, मेरे पास भी आते थे, बिकॉज आई डू कंसल्टिंग विद फैमिलीज ऑल्सो, क्योंकि मैं भी एक पेरेंट ही हूँ। तो ये जो फैमिलीज आते थे कि हमने ये किया है लेकिन कुछ फर्क पड़ा नहीं है, बहुत सारा पैसा खर्चा किया है, ये वो करके, एंड इवन दो वी वर टेकिंग them towards evidence based practices which we know work or which help children and adults with autism, parents were choosing to do this because इसमें मार्केटिंग और इसमें बाकी सब जो डॉक्टर्स कन्विंस करते हैं कि इससे क्योर होने वाला है और बहुत जल्दी क्योर होने वाला है ऑटिज्म, ये बहुत गलत चीज दिखाई देती थी। And then, as we were having a discussion, I can't remember the exact sequence, but around 2021 में ये जो बात कर रहे थे, and we sort of felt that it was time कि आगे बढ़े, क्योंकि families के लिए ये बहुत जरूरी है ये समझना इसका what the impact is for them, और बहुत पैसा खर्चा हो रहा था with no end result. Somebody had to do this. So we approached many other NGOs to be partners, but for one reason or the other, we couldn't partner with them. But somebody had to take it up. And when I called Karuvaki and I Pro Bono, इन्होंने बताया कि पेरेंट्स को लेके आओ, या to make the case stronger. And they also recommended कि हाई कोर्ट में मत फाइल करो PIL, लेकिन सुप्रीम कोर्ट में ये इशू जो है वो पैन इंडिया है और सब के लिए ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में आप हम लोग लेके जाएंगे। आई डिडंट नो व्हाट वी वर डूइंग, पर ये जो जर्नी है, जो भी लॉयर्स ने बोला हमने किया। Or some people were calling me. I was getting anonymous phone calls from people. A lot of data was being shared, which of course the lawyers said we can't use. But it was interesting. It was frustrating to a point कि हमने जो हमारे हाथ में है वो किया है. We need to stop this practice. वो तो सबका ये था कि इसमें रिसर्च नहीं है, इसमें कुछ there's no evidence that it works, and definitely there's no evidence that it's a cure, because if we don't know the cause of autism, how can we even sort of think about cures? What we did know was there were other evidence-based practices जो parents or families ने करना चाहिए. They should be doing those things instead of spending money on this. And so we took it up. And this is where we are right now.
Thank you, Sushma. And in fact, indeed, I remember that public debate that we had. We tried to sort this out without taking legal action by inviting people to a public debate where the doctors from both sides, for and against, were present. We tried to be scientific about it, and unfortunately, that did not yield any results. And if I recall correctly, Sushma, Yash Charitable Trust ने एक फिल्म भी बनाई थी स्टेम सेल थेरेपी के बारे में. Will you say a little bit about that?
हाँ, तो उस साल हमारे पास थोड़े से पैसे थे, fortunately, और all the experts, Vibha, Dr. Udani, Anaita Hegde, Parul, Uma, myself, one parent agreed to join this petition, but he was incognito. मतलब उनका मुंह, उनका चेहरा नहीं दिखाई दिया, उनका नाम और उनका बोलने का तरीका भी बदल दिया गया. एंड आई एम नॉट श्योर कि पेरेंट्स को क्यों इतनी घबराहट हो रही थी कि इसमें नहीं शामिल हो. लेकिन ये एक पेरेंट थे जो करेजियसली उनका उनका जर्नी उन्होंने बताया कि कुछ फायदा नहीं हुआ, बहुत सारे पैसे उन्होंने बर्बाद किए इसके ऊपर, और उनके लड़के को कुछ फायदा हुआ नहीं. तो ऑल ऑफ अस देन मेड, इट्स अ वेरी शॉर्ट फिल्म, वेल इट्स 12 minutes or something like that, वेरी इंफॉर्मेटिव. और अगर किसी को कोई जानकारी चाहिए फ्रॉम renowned specialists, प्लीज वॉच दिस फिल्म.
Thank you so much, Sushma, for that introduction to the whole issue. And I hope that most of you will watch the film. I agree with Sushma कि ये बहुत ही अच्छी फिल्म है और उसमें पूरी एंड टू एंड जानकारी मिलती है स्टेम सेल के बारे में. पर क्योंकि अभी हम फिल्म नहीं देख रहे हैं, we are turning to our expert scientists on the panel right now. Uma, if you can just tell all the participants just from the beginning, just the basics. What is a stem cell? What is stem cell therapy? How is it relevant to autism? यानी कि autism के लिए stem cell therapy क्या ताल्लुक रखता है और क्यों लोगों को बताया गया है कि stem cell therapy autism में फायदेमंद है? Will you tell us a little bit about it? Feel free to speak in English. I will translate as needed.
Thank you. Thank you, Karuaki, Vibha, and Sushma. Firstly, let me say I'm so very happy to celebrate this landmark victory with everyone here. It's been a long journey of 4 years because in 2021, when a friend, Nirupa, who worked with Yash Charitable Trust, shared very heartbreaking stories of, as Sushma said, of families selling land and jewelry for the stem cell therapy for their autistic children, I was quite upset. And she inquired whether I knew about stem cell therapy and did it work. So I was aware that stem cells did not work for autism. I'd been, researching in stem cells earlier, though not for therapy. And if it was still being offered to patients as a cure, it was clearly unethical. So I started digging deeper. Now, to understand why it doesn't work for autism and why it's unethical, let's go a little bit into the science behind both autism and stem cells, and also some of the rules that are existent in India for stem cells as therapy, stem cells as research and stem cells as therapy. Now, autism isn't a disease to be cured. As Sushma mentioned, or Vibha mentioned, it's a condition of the brain of the fetus developing differently before and after birth over a period of time. So it involves structural differences in the brain, which is why autistic individuals see the world differently, they act differently. The cause is not known, but multiple factors have been identified to play a role, and genetics plays a strong part. So now, what are stem cells? Actually, what are cells first? Okay, cells are the basic building blocks of every living thing. different cells have different specialized functions. You are aware that if everybody in every body, in every organism, there are different organs, heart, liver, kidney, and these are all made up of these very specialized cells that perform different functions. Now, all these cells are formed from a very unique kind of cell called a stem cell, whose only purpose is to produce these specialized cells when required. So, either during development or even later. And they can replace lost cells or to some extent repair damaged parts. The other property they have, they can keep multiplying. So that there is always a supply of stem cells available, and they are found to be present in almost all organs of the body. So given this potential for repair, research into stem cells has become a very active field. But it is still experimental for most conditions and diseases. At present, stem cells therapy is approved only for some cancers and some non-cancer diseases of blood cells. So for stem cell therapy, how is it done? So usually stem cells are removed from the organs where they are present or where they are easily accessible. Okay, it's not going to be easy to say remove stem cells from liver or deep inside. You can't do that. So they're processed then and injected for repair or replacement in any other site of the body. Now, in autism, cells are taken out from deep inside the bone where there is bone marrow of the autistic patient. They are then processed and then injected back into the spinal cord. The spinal cord is an extension of the brain which goes down the back. And therefore, this procedure is fairly risky. And side effects are known. For example, patients who've undergone this stem cell therapy, some of them have had epilepsy, they've had increased hyperactivity, headache and vomiting are not uncommon. And of course, any invasive procedure has the danger of infection. So a few studies of stem cell therapy in autism, and these are called clinical trials, have been published, but most have not been done using a proper method.
Uma, before you go into that, maybe
Yeah.
I could translate quickly
Sure,
what
sure.
you're
Please
saying.
do.
I mean, if I translate incorrectly, please correct me.
Sure, sure. Definitely.
जिनको हिंदी में अनुवाद की जरूरत है, मैं ये बताना चाहती थी कि ये सेल उसको कहते हैं जो हमारे शरीर का सबसे छोटा कक्ष है, कोशिकाएं हैं शरीर के, और स्टेम सेल वो सेल रहता है जो शरीर के हर ऑर्गन में, हर हिस्से में रहता है, जो शुरुआत की सेल रहती है, यानी कि जो हमारे स्पेशल सेल्स हैं, जो लिवर में या हमारे हार्ट में या पसलियों में रहती हैं या मांसपेशी में रहती हैं, ये सारे सेल्स की का शुरुआत इस स्टेम सेल से होता है। और ये स्टेम सेल्स में ये ताकत है कि वो किसी भी डैमेज हुए सेल्स को रिपेयर कर सकते हैं। और इस वजह से विज्ञान में ये सोच थी कि अगर हम इस सेल को लेके उस जगह पे भेजें जहां पे सेल्स की डैमेज हो चुकी है, तो उसको वो ठीक कर पाएंगे, रिपेयर कर पाएंगे। तो स्टेम सेल थेरेपी में इस सेल को जहां से आसानी से निकाल सकते हैं, जैसे कि रीड बोन मैरो से, यानी कि हड्डियों में से निकाल के फिर उनको वापस उस इंडिविजुअल के रीढ़ की हड्डी में डाला जाता है। और इस प्रोसेस में काफी रिस्क रहते हैं। बच्चे को अकड़ी हो सकता है या सीजर्स हो सकते हैं, उल्टी हो सकता है, सर दर्द हो सकता है, और सबसे जरूरी चीज इन्फेक्शन भी हो सकता है। तो ये बिना रिस्क का प्रोसीजर नहीं है, बच्चों को काफी रिस्क है इसमें। और उमा अभी बताने जा रही हैं कि ये साबित नहीं हुआ है कि ये ऑटिज्म में फायदेमंद है। प्लीज गो अहेड।
Thanks, Riva. So there are a few good studies with proper control groups done in a proper method, which have concluded that stem cell therapy is not effective for autism. It doesn't work in autism. And this would be expected because, as we discussed earlier, there are structural changes in the brain in autistic individuals. And you cannot just rewire in a magical way by a few injections of stem cells. So there is no magic fix for the condition. Now, you may have some parents of stem cell treated individuals could have noted tiny improvements after the procedure. And this is possibly due to a very short term boost from the stem cells that disappears within a few months. Because stem cells do release some substances called growth factors that are like vitamins for other cells around them. Okay, so temporarily, a patient might have said, see, I had this stem cell therapy procedure. Today, my child looked at me very and connected with me, connected with somebody else. But this is a very temporary thing. Shall I go ahead, Biba?
Uma, I was going to ask actually, Sanjay, I know I'm breaking the order, but I was wondering if we could also have a little bit of discussion around why it is not okay to believe anecdotal or stories around getting better. जब हम parents, अगर parent हूँ मैं और मुझे लगता है कि किसी ने मुझे बताया कि मैंने स्टेम सेल थेरेपी लिया और मेरे बच्चे को बहुत फायदेमंद था, तो किस प्रकार के विज्ञान के तौर से किस प्रकार के सबूत की जरूरत है जिससे पहले कि मैं अपने बच्चे को ऐसे ट्रीटमेंट दूं जो कि मेरे बच्चे को एक्चुअली हानिकारक हो सकता है. I could probably be doing something dangerous, and just because one parent told me that it's really helped my child, how is it helpful? Sanjay, would you comment on that, like anecdotal evidence versus something that science? What do we mean when we say evidence-based treatments?
Right. Thanks, Vibha. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I think let me just start by saying that so currently modern medicine is seeing a huge explosion of therapies and advances in every field. And people are trying out various treatment modalities. But I think the question is which of them, as you said, has solid, good evidence. Because just because something seems to work conceptually, it doesn't mean that it actually helps people, right? And therefore, there is now an entire methodology in modern scientific medical practice, which essentially attempts to build evidence, and that's what is called evidence-based medicine. But in simpler terms, we need to test it out on a good number of people. We need to be sure that there is no bias in the testing. So ideally, we need to probably compare it with another set of people on whom it has not been used. And these are what are called as randomized trials. And then finally, the therapy or the new drug, whatever it is then considered that it has a evidence base. And that's how progress in scientific medicine is taking place. But I think the question, therefore, is when there are competing therapies, how do we? So there is one is the scientific evidence. How do we access that? How do we know what is evidence-based therapy? And I think, first of all, I want to say that it is almost unfair and impossible for ordinary people to assess this. Of course, with the proliferation of information now on the net, it is not absolutely impossible. I would say there are ways to judge this, but it's not easy. And therefore, I think what is the key here is that we need a third party or an umpire who sort of says, okay, here are the therapies that are being promoted, uh, sometimes with good intention, but often with commerce in mind. And there is science in healthcare, there is parallelly commerce. We know that, and therefore that third umpire needs to say, okay, what is really something that should be used, and that's where comes the question of assessing the science and giving recommendations, and that's how new therapies are actually introduced in many places. Now, there's one more point here, which is that if somebody is paying for a new treatment, the person paying, which may be in many countries is a third party. So, for example, let's say the United Kingdom, England, the National Health Service will decide whether something is scientific because it's a universal health care which is treating everybody. Uh, I think the problem is that when people are paying out of pocket and sort of are then offered therapies, then there is no third party paying. So there is one more gatekeeper to some extent who is absent. So the medical profession, the regulators, and which is usually the state, and the third is possibly the funder. These are gatekeepers who should ideally be sort of suggesting that something is working and something is not working. Having said this, Vibha, I must say this right. Also, immediately add that yes, in situations where we say as modern medical practitioners that there is no cure, it is quite natural for people to start looking for therapies beyond the so-called evidence-based therapy. So I would say that that is something that is perfectly understandable. But then we need to understand there immediately, therefore, also identify that many therapies, and this is not only autism and stem cell, but many therapies are actually being pushed for commercial reasons. So I think this is something that's emerging as in a big way in many areas of modern medical scientific care.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. And we took a quick detour there also because I think it's important to say at the outset that there are ways to assess whether something is scientific or not. There's a very interesting question on the chat which says, when you say something is not proven, does it mean that it doesn't work at all? And I think Uma, आपने बताया था कि इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि कई बारी हमें सुनाई नहीं देता कि कुछ फर्क पड़ा. But even before we go there, I want to reiterate what Uma has said and I think Anand has said on the chat. पहली बात तो ये कि ऑटिज्म में दिमाग को ना तो चोट लगा है ना उसमें कोई इंजुरी या रिपेयर करने की जरूरत है. दिमाग अलग तरीके से बना है, लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि ये बीमारी है जिसका इलाज ढूंढने की जरूरत है. So I think that is a fundamental thing that questions this kind of treatment. As you said, Sanjay, where there is no cure, there are a million treatments. तो इस बात का फायदा उठा के बहुत लोग ये कोशिश करते हैं पेरेंट्स को ये बताने के लिए कि इस चीज से क्योर होगा या इलाज होगा. सबसे पहली बात, अगर ये बीमारी नहीं है तो इसका इलाज कैसे. और उमा, if you want to say more about the science of stem cell, which makes us question why at all it is being tried in autism.
Yeah, so I will just continue a little bit more about some other findings while digging deeper into and doing my research. That I was really shocked to find that at that time in 2021, that more than 100 clinics were offering such stem cell therapy cures for autism all over India. And of course, the actual figures likely to be much higher. And also, what was surprising was that there already were rules in place by the Indian Council for Medical Research of the Ministry of Health in Delhi, which clearly stated that stem cells are not recommended for autism as routine therapy. It's experimental and can only be offered to patients as a clinical trial. Next, that patients cannot be charged to participate in a clinical trial. And yet, we have heard from patients that lakhs of rupees were being charged for this. And lastly, if a patient is harmed during the clinical trial, the clinic must pay compensation. So, in spite of these rules being there, why was it that the regulation was not happening? And so presenting these findings to the group of the YCT ask founder members, I think Sushma mentioned then that the public interest litigation took shape with the help of I Pro Bono team in Delhi, etc. And of course, the happy news that came in on January 30th, 2026, it's a major victory. And I think I'll now just hand it over to Karuwaki to really, dissect the judgment and tell you the details of the judgment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Uma. That was really helpful. That is, यानी कि उस वक्त जब हमने पेटिशन फाइल किया था, उस वक्त जब आपने रिसर्च किया था, तो आपको पता चला कि इस बात के बावजूद कि इंडियन काउंसिल ऑफ मेडिकल रिसर्च, जो कि इंडिया का सबसे बड़ा कंट्रोल एजेंसी है, कि ये बताने के लिए कि कौन से मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट्स और रिसर्च में क्या फर्क है, उन्होंने ये क्लियरली बताया था कि स्टेम सेल थेरेपी ट्रीटमेंट के तौर पे नहीं यूज किया जा सकता है और केवल रिसर्च के तौर पे यूज किया जा सकता है। इसके बावजूद 100 क्लिनिक्स थे इंडिया में जो पेशेंट से पैसे ले रहे थे स्टेम सेल थेरेपी के लिए, कि हालांकि अगर ये रिसर्च है तो इसमें पेशेंट्स को कोई पैसे नहीं देना चाहिए, और नॉट ओनली दैट, अगर उनको इससे कोई हानि पहुंचे तो रिसर्च में जो भाग ले रहे हैं उन्हें कॉम्पनसेट करना चाहिए। सो just the idea that they were not, they were actually asked to pay for this, even though it was clear that this is not a scientific treatment, but in fact a research in progress. Karuwaki, now for the way that this actually happened, could you share with us the actual judgment from the Supreme Court and unpack it for us? What exactly does it say, and what do we take away from it?
Thank you so much, Vibha. Arjun, I'd request you to please quickly share the PPT so that I can talk about it. And जो chat में question है, are we taking it in the end, Vibha?
I think so, Karavaki, because there are some of the questions which are very detailed, and I think it'll be better to start in the end.
Sure. So we're going to discuss, and basically very briefly मैं कोशिश करूंगी कि हम डिटेल्स में ना जाएं और जो स्पेसिफिक important takeaways हैं हम उसमें फोकस करें, because the judgment is very very detailed. It's a very well reasoned judgment that way, and बहुत अच्छे से रिसर्च करके जजमेंट लिखी है। अगर हम डिटेल में जाएंगे तो we'll all get it will take the entire day for us, so we will not go into a lot of details, but quickly we will go through the major takeaways from the judgment. This is the judgment in the case का नाम है, अगर आपको पूरी जजमेंट पढ़नी है तो केस का नाम है यस चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट एंड अदर्स वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया एंड अदर्स. We can also share the judgment with you separately, but going forward, issues raised we'll go to. Can you change the slide, please? Okay. So ये issues हमने कोर्ट में रेज करी थी, और the court also identified these are the major two issues: whether doctors, clinics and hospitals institutions are legally permitted to offer stem cell therapy as a routine healthcare service, as a cure or a treatment जो basically promote किया जा रहा था. Second question, I think Uma will be able to give us more details if required, whether the Drugs Act 1940 and the NDCT rules provide a framework for the regulation of research of stem cell therapy as a treatment for autism spectrum. So these were the two main issues. we will now quickly go to what the court actually found out. The key findings जो हमारे लिए जरूरी है, वैसे तो बहुत सारे findings थे, but the key findings जो हमारे लिए सबके लिए as a group, as parents, as doctors, we need to know is that the court found out that there is no scientific evidence to support stem cell therapy as a sound medical practice for ASD, जो already उमा, विभा और सुषमा, डॉक्टर संजय बोल चुके हैं that this is there is no scientific evidence to actually prove that stem cell therapy is a sound medical practice. And the court actually went into a lot of things. It went into ICMR ka research. It went into a lot of other documents that they based this decision on. Then they also held this, that the stem cell use for ASD can only be conducted within the confines of an approved research and monitored clinical trials. जो basically as a group हम लोग सब बोल रहे हैं और आप लोग भी ये बात कर रहे थे. The court agreed with what basically was our contention, that हम इसको as a treatment or as a cure नहीं promote कर सकते, और clinics can't take money and sell this as a treatment to any of the families affected or children with autism. Going into the directions, very important. I think this is the bit that we will focus more on. There is right now a ban on commercial use of stem cell therapy as a cure. इसका मतलब ये है कि कोई भी क्लिनिक या हॉस्पिटल या मेडिकल इंस्टीट्यूशन जो स्टेम सेल थेरेपी को प्रमोट कर रही है एज ए क्योर, they cannot do that right now, and there is a ban on the commercial use. And if at all this is happening, abhi bhi agar ye ho raha hai, it can be brought up. Although the court has also recognized the fact कि इसको कोई central law या legislation या rules नहीं है जो govern कर रहा है, but at this point also अगर ये हो रहा है तो हम please as a group we can all decide and brainstorm as to क्या कर सकते हैं. We can write maybe to the NMC, or because the court is also taking it up, it is going on, part heard है, तो हम court को भी बता सकते हैं जाके कि although आपका ये judgment आ गया है, the dissemination hasn't happened as much. We are all trying to create awareness about it, but this is also happening. This continues to happen despite your judgment. So we can also bring it up in the next hearing. So इसीलिए it is important for all of us to be keep our minds open and eyes open and see कि अभी भी continue हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है. That's why please talk about it. Please let your peers know. Please share details of the judgment and the judgment with others, so that they also keep an eye out कि ऐसा हो रहा है क्या, continue हो रहा है कि नहीं. Then the judgment also says that any clinic that is doing it is liable, and disciplinary action for professional misconduct will be taken against them. There are repercussions like the registration of the clinics can be cancelled under the Clinical Establishments Act 2010. There is a provision here, Clinical Establishments Act में, कि हर एक स्टेट में एक अथॉरिटी होते हैं, and if they do something that violates this particular judgment, then their registration will be cancelled. तो अगर इसको as a cure हॉस्पिटल्स अभी भी कर रहे हैं या प्राइवेट क्लिनिक्स अभी भी इसको एज अ क्योर बता रहे हैं, इट इज disciplinary action will be taken against them. They will either be fined, which is the first step under the cancellation, or their licenses to continue the practice can also be cancelled, which is a big deal, which is a huge thing. And this direction is noted down in as a mandatory part of the judgment.
Paruvaki, can
The
I
next-
clarify one thing? I think we want to clarify whether it is necessary for them to claim it as a cure, or is it it's even enough if they say they offer it as a treatment. Am I right? Even if they offer it as a treatment versus saying that, and it'll cause improvement, versus saying that it is a research protocol, you will not be charged, you're participating in a trial, the risks will be explained to you. Unless that they go down that route, it is not legal for them to continue. Am I right?
You're right, Vibha, and I think we also have a question there. It's very true that you cannot offer it as a treatment. There's a ban on commercial use का मतलब ही यही है कि किसी भी तरह से आप इसको treatment या cure या पैसे लेके हो या फिर ऐसे भी आप इसको as a treatment नहीं बोल सकते या कर सकते. use. It will only be used for clinical trials, and that too, it has to basically follow everything, every step or the process that it requires for approval of that clinical trial also. So all of that needs to be followed. Then the court has also like gone into the fact कि जिनका treatment already चल रहा है, मान लीजिए कोई clinic है जिसमें already there are children with autism and parents are already registered with them and they are trying to use this stem cell therapy for treating autism, then what is the solution right now? आप बीच में से कैसे रोकोगे? What is it that people can do? So the court has asked the Ministry of Health and Family and Welfare, which is the MOHFW, and aims to basically sit together and come up with a solution for patients currently undergoing therapy to ensure that safely उनको reroute कर दिया जाए to legitimate institutions conducting clinical trials. अगर कहीं ऑटिज्म एज क्लिनिकल ट्रायल चल रहा है तो उनको वहां रीरूट कर दिया जाए एंड द ट्रीटमेंट डजंट कंटिन्यू इलीगली, because at this point treating autism through stem cell therapy has become illegal after this judgment has come into place. तो इसका reroute करने का भी they have basically put it on Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and AIMS, and in fact the Secretary of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has been asked to come up with a reply within 4 weeks कि क्या कंप्लेंट्स हुआ, ये जो हमने आपको बोला था करने कि आप रीरूट करिए, एक डिस्कशन करिए, कम अप विद द प्लान, हैज इट हैपेंड और नॉट हैपेंड. इसीलिए मैं कॉन्स्टेंटली बोल रही हूँ कि ये पार्टहर्ड है और ये सबजुडिस जो हम वर्ड यूज करते हैं इन लॉ है. तो द मिनिस्ट्री हैज टू कम अप विद प्लान टू हाउ टू रेगुलेट, because abhi tak there is no solid regulation of stem cell therapy. Then second, how to basically reroute the persons who are actually going through such therapy to other legitimate institutions conducting clinical trials. Now we'll go to some of the suggestions that इसमें अगर और questions है तो we can delve into it because this is the most important bit. So now suggestions दिए हैं कुछ court ने, again like very interesting because the court has gone into giving directions but they have also gone into giving suggestions, जहाँ पे I think all of us as parents, doctors and civil society need to come into picture कि हम ये कैसे aid करें this process of coming the legislative action के लिए जो suggestions दिए हैं. The court has recognized कि इसका कोई भी clear legislation अभी तक नहीं है. So they have asked कि जो भी existing fragmented rules and guidelines की तरह या recommendations की तरह है about stem cell therapy का use, इसको एक single clear legislation की तरह बनाया जाए. And for that there needs to be discussion by the ministry with the civil society, with affected parties, with parents, with doctors. They can't really take a decision on their own. So I want to also, it's also interesting with what they come back with by the end of 4 weeks, might not come back with a reply. They might ask for more time also, but let's see what they come back with, because when they start this process, all of us will have to be a party to this, and we have to basically keep a track of ki kya legislation ban rahi hai and do we want to as a group contribute. So before I end, I will actually want to listen from all of you here as to if we want to contribute, then how is it that we do it? What are the recommendations? Should we come up with a robust document or something that we can share with them at that point then, and what do we actually do with it? And then next hearing में जब ये बातें होंगी तो what do we put in quote as to how we are going to support or assist them? That's going to be important. Now the court has also said कि जो national apex committee है stem cell research के लिए NACSART, उनको भी एक national monitoring करनी है coherent तरीके से, because अभी वो नहीं हो रही है. And again the implied suggestions are कि आप एक rights based approach रखिए. Again they keep using patient because now it's court, so I know that that's not the right way of using, but the judgment says patient consent, ensuring that patients in clinical trials are not charged for these experimental treatments. So now then this shift is also going to happen for people who are paying for the therapy. जब वो clinical trial की तरफ जाएंगे, there needs to be a प्रोसेस जहाँ ट्रैक करा जाए, उनको ये इन्फॉर्म किया जाए कि क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स में आपको पेमेंट नहीं करनी है. तो ये कौन करेगा? डू वी एज अ ग्रुप talk about it? How do we kind of disseminate this particular information ki the switch also needs to be clear कि कैसे switch करें, कहाँ switch कर रहे हैं वो लोग, और वहां पे जाके do you continue paying? No, we cannot continue paying because anyway clinical trial में आप charge नहीं कर सकते हो for the experimental treatments. Then the court has also said कि once all of this comes into place, clear legislation एक बन गया, एक गवर्नेंस का मेथड आ गया ऑफ नेशनल मॉनिटरिंग, पेशेंट्स को इन्फॉर्म करना है कंसेंट के साथ, तो उसके बाद क्या करना है, पीरियोडिक इंस्पेक्शंस करनी है कि ऑल ऑफ दिस इज हैपनिंग और नॉट हैपनिंग. So it's a little, the suggestions obviously will be a little loose than the directions, but I still feel very, very strong and important suggestions coming directly from the Supreme Court can't be taken lightly by the ministry also, or the authorities who are actually going to come up with legislation like this. With this I'd end, but I'd also like to mention one more very important thing is judgment ke through the court has also brought up something that I think Parul and Uma will also be able to talk more about, कि जो consent है, कि हम consent कर रहे हैं, why do you have a problem? So that consent is not informed, because there is no evidence of this, therapy being used as a treatment. आपके पास जब सही evidence नहीं है, कोई लिखित में कहीं ऐसा कहीं मेंशन नहीं है कि दिस थेरेपी इज गोइंग टू हेल्प यू, मतलब आप जो कंसेंट भी कर रहे हो, दैट्स नॉट एन इन्फॉर्म्ड कंसेंट. एंड कोर्ट हैज गॉन इनटू इट इन डिटेल. प्रेसिडेंस साइट करके समीरा कोहली का एक जजमेंट था जिसको साइट किया है, और डिटेल में कोर्ट ने बताया है कि यस, वी डू रेस्पेक्ट एजेंसी एंड कंसेंट, बट दैट एजेंसी एंड कंसेंट इज बेसिकली, अपूर्वा आस्क्ड व्हाट इज इन्फॉर्म्ड कंसेंट. इन्फॉर्म्ड कंसेंट इज बेसिकली आपके पास सब लिखा हुआ है कि मान लीजिए anything that you can, like, there are all doctors here, maybe there is some treatment, for example chemotherapy for cancer. There might be evidence, there is definitely some evidence na that says chemotherapy is for cancer, or it is a treatment that can be used for cancer. So वो informed consent होता है for a patient to go with it. But for stem cell therapy, it is not written anywhere कि stem cell therapy is basically useful for someone with autism, or it will cure. It is all assumptions, and being there is no paper, medical research paper evidence. ICMR का कुछ भी नहीं है जो बोलता है कि stem cell therapy, जो constantly उमा बता रही थी हमको. Uma, I know you have your raised hand. I think you should join now and clear this doubt as to not an informed consent for someone who is willing to take this up as a treatment for autism.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I raised my hand because there are a number of points, that one you asked also about the regulation of the loopholes in the regulation that currently exist. Okay. So one is so there are many sub-organizations of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Okay. So there is ICMR makes the rules and regulation big, but it cannot implement them. It is not a statutory body. Okay. So the implementation is by the other sub-organizations, which are the National Medical Commission is one. There is the CDSCO, it's a long name, Central Drug Authority. And here that regulates by definition something called stem cell or stem cell product. Okay. But what the judges found, the judgment pointed out that there is no regulation for the procedure of using these stem cells or stem cell product, that is stem cell therapy. So that is lacking here. And there was a body, the NAC SRT, okay, which was instituted to oversee stem cell research as well as stem cell therapy, and that was instituted in 2006. And even after we filed a public interest litigation in 2022, in 2023, there was a notice from the Department of Health Research, and it was just dissolved. There was no explanation. And by 2024, that committee that oversaw all of it, the research as well as therapy, was dissolved. And this is where the judges have noted that NAC SRT, this body, has to be brought back to oversee all the research, because by dissolving it, what was done is that the ethical committees were handed back only to the institutions doing it, institutions or clinics that were doing this therapy. Okay, so actually the judges said that this has to be brought back. And lastly, you were asking about informed consent, right? So one of the points was that the arguments of some of the respondents was that patients have a right to treatment. Okay, to choose the choice of their, to make their choice for their treatment. They have an autonomous right. But in the case of something like stem cell therapy for autism, where it is still research, and what is the meaning of that? Which means that it is not verified, all the information is not there yet. Okay, so the research can go on, research is required, but it is not a treatment to be offered for any kind of payment. And also, since all the information is not there yet, it can inform consent doesn't make sense. Okay, it's, and therefore the patients can't just say that we want this treatment, because all the information is not there yet.
Sanjay, I see that you want to comment, but I just want to say that there are a lot of passionate parents on this group whose children are receiving stem cell therapy or have received, and they feel very convinced. Our job here is not to tell you that you are wrong to seek support for your child. Our job here is to tell you what the science says and what the law says. In fact, the International Society for Stem Cell Research, which is an international body that is committed to research in stem cells, clearly states that this is unproven and experimental in the case of autism. I think we need to respect science and respect the law, right? And so, if you do want to get your child stem cell therapy and you feel as a parent you have a right to do that, in that case, please do enroll your child in a research protocol that should not be charged, that you should be taken no money from for participating in that, where the risks are clearly explained to you and you can participate in that. But right now, the law says and science says that this is, in fact, not a treatment for children with autism. Sanjay, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I just want to quickly say that this is a very tricky and interesting part of the judgment, right? Which says that patients do not have a right to demand treatment which is not proven. Now, on the other hand, we also say, all of us say this, that patients have a right to choose whatever their treatment they want to choose. And let me say this, that in every aspect of care, including my practice, when we tell them that we can't do much, they do seek therapies which are not proven. And they often ask me, should we try this? And I tell them, I say, look, you have every right to try it. However, if you're asking me whether it works, I don't think it works. If you're asking me whether it's absolutely safe, it's probably not completely safe. But there's another marker which I want to just share with everybody कि अगर ये stem cell therapy centers जो है वो अच्छा साइंस कर रहे हैं और थेरेपी साइंटिफिक दे रहे हैं, तो आप उनको थोड़ा गौर से देखिए वो कहाँ है, कौन है। मेन स्ट्रीम हॉस्पिटल्स में स्टेम सेल थेरेपी क्यों नहीं दी जा रही है? जो मेन स्ट्रीम हॉस्पिटल्स है गवर्नमेंट के, क्या उनको ये लगता है क्या कि हमको स्टेम सेल नहीं देना है अगर ट्रीटमेंट काम कर रही है? तो ये कौन है, इनके पास कौन, ये फॉरेनर्स इतने क्यों आ रहे हैं? मतलब ये आप थोड़ा सा उसको डिटेल में देखिए कि इनके बैकग्राउंड्स क्या है, और फॉलो द मनी। एंड आई थिंक उधर काफी बड़े क्लूज होते हैं। सो ऑन वन हैंड देयर इज द लीगल रूल्स, but on the other hand, just see the nature of some of these stem cell. I'm not just talking autism, but the nature के कौन है, कहाँ है. And I think it's obvious that that the main intention is commerce. I'm not saying therefore that commerce is bad, except that the nature of that commerce is very obvious. They don't want to be mainstream, and that is also something we should see. So one is not saying that there is no right. Of course, everybody has a right. People try various therapies, but see what that therapy is, what is the cost, if it is indeed a trial, why are they charging you, and what is happening, why is the mainstream hospitals, the mainstream medicine not using those therapies? So it's something worth thinking about.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. And Parul, I think, with utmost compassion for all families who really want the best for their child, right? Whoever is out there, whether they're trying treatments, not trying treatments, could you say a little about why do families seek therapies like stem cell therapy and various others? And Sanjay, I share your experience completely, right? In terms of families come to me and honestly, as a parent myself, why would I not try something that I think will help my child, right? So, Parul, could you say a little bit about why parents try therapies and what is a pathway to getting to a point where you feel um, comfortable saying, no, this is not right for my child? Um, could you say a little bit about that? And Sushma, please feel free to chip.
थैंक यू विभा एंड थैंक यू टू द होल पैनल। काफी चीजें ऑलरेडी बहुत अच्छी तरीके से एक्सप्लेन की गई है एंड आई वुड लाइक टू कम इन हियर एज अ lay parent in that sense, but a parent nonetheless who has seen more than 30 years of ट्रीटमेंट्स और थेरेपीज और क्या क्या अवेलेबल है हमारे बच्चों के लिए। और हमारे साथ आज काफी फोरम फॉर ऑटिज्म के बाकी पेरेंट्स भी है ऑन दिस वेबिनार एंड आई एम श्योर दे विल आल्सो अग्री विद मी। और मेन रीजन विभा आई फील दैट वी आर पुट इन दिस पोजिशन इज मोस्ट टाइम्स जिस तरीके से डायग्नोसिस इटसेल्फ दिया जाता है वो दिया जाता है इन अ वे दैट इट इज अ लाइफ सेंटेंस। मतलब ऑटिज्म अभी अगर आपके मतलब जीरो के आसपास है, उसको शायद दिस इज माय पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस ऑल्सो, उसको शायद एकेडमिक्स नहीं वो कर पाएगा, इंडिपेंडेंटली नहीं रह पाएगा, शायद नहीं बोल पाएगा। सो इट इज वेरी डेफिसिट बेस्ड most times and most doctors, and that is also changing and that's a great thing. But जो जैसे हमारे जमाने में जब हमारे बच्चे 2-3 साल के थे, दैट वुड बी द वे इन विच अ डायग्नोसिस वुड बी गिवन। बेटा 33 years का है, मुझे एंड नोबडी कुड हैव सेड इट एट दैट टाइम कि उसको पेंटिंग वो कर पाएगा, वो स्विमिंग अच्छे से करता है, वो देयर सो मेनी थिंग्स, इज एन एंटरप्रेन्योर, ही कैन लिव इंडिपेंडेंटली। तो ये जो चीजें थे वो कोई प्रिडिक्ट नहीं कर पाता एट दैट टाइम टू सीक।
Parul, your voice is breaking. You're cutting in and out.
whatever is available to better the life. Can you hear me? Am I clearer?
Now it's a little bit better.
Okay.
Parul, maybe you can try to keep your
Okay,
video
there is
off
an
if that works better.
internet issues, so I hope, yeah, I'll do that. Kind of a situation is natural that whatever is available. अगर किसी ने कहा है इस बाबा के पास जाओ, इस मंदिर में जाओ, यहाँ जाओ, वहां जाओ,
Parul, we are
इस थेरेपी
unable
को
to
देखो, उस
hear
थेरेपी
you.
को देखो, तो हर कुछ जो है, I really don't know what to do. We have internet
Sushma,
issues
I'm
here.
wondering if you could pick up where Parul left off. I think that would be
We can
helpful.
come back to Parul in a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, sure.
आई थिंक टॉकिंग इज पेरेंट्स, हम लोग पारुल भी और मैं भी दोनों
Hold the
parents,
mic closer to you, Sushma, please.
दोनों पेरेंट्स हैं। और हम लोगों ने भी मतलब जो एक्सपीरियंसेस है टू ब्रिंग अप आवर चिल्ड्रन, वीव गॉन थ्रू दिस होल डिबेट, मतलब खुद के अंदर अंदर कि लोग मुझे बोल रहे हैं कि ये बाबा के पास जाओ या ये ट्रीटमेंट करो या वो ट्रीटमेंट करो। और इसमें डायलेमा, इसमें कॉन्फ्लिक्ट एज पेरेंट्स हमेशा आता है, एंड वी टोटली अंडरस्टैंड दैट, क्योंकि ऑटिज्म इज अ कॉम्प्लेक्स कंडीशन, वी ऑल नो दैट। और इसमें एज अ पेरेंट हम लोग भी करना चाहते हैं कि मतलब बच्चे के लिए सबसे अच्छा इसका रिजल्ट आए, लेकिन ये भी उतना ही सही है कि इसका रिजल्ट जो है वो फॉर अदर थेरेपीज, एंड somebody put a question in the chat box about this, कि ये थेरेपीज ट्राइड एंड टेस्टेड है। बहुत सारा रिसर्च लिटरेचर है जो ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपिस्ट क्या कर सकते हैं अपने बच्चे के लिए, या लैंग्वेज थेरेपी, बहुत लैंग्वेज स्पीच एंड लैंग्वेज पैथोलॉजिस्ट को कंसल्ट करना बहुत ही इट्स बेनिफिट्स आवर चिल्ड्रन। So these are the kind of things that we want parents to consider and understand, and then make their own choices. We're not here to say that stem cell therapy will never help children with autism. But abhi jo hai is वक्त 2026 फरवरी में इसका कोई रिसर्च बेस नहीं है, और हम इतना ही कहना चाहते हैं कि we understand, because we're parents, we understand what every parent is going through. We've also been through the same thing. But please consider everything and then make a choice for your child. And the problem that both Parul and I have faced over the years is that parents who don't have enough resources are really making choices based on, of course, emotion, but financially they are drained. And we don't want that for any parent, because we know, as parents of children with autism, that we have to plan for their entire future. Parul and I and everyone here who's a parent has to plan for their child's future. And all we want is that planning happens in a way that makes sense to the individual and the family.
थैंक यू सुषमा। आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट अपूर्वा जी, थोड़ा सा पर्सनल क्वेश्चन चीजें लिख रहे हैं आप ऑन द चैट, इट्स रियली रिक्वेस्ट यू नॉट टू डू दैट।
Karuaki, can you hear me now? Can you hear me
I
now?
can,
Yes,
Parul, I
Parul.
can.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
I just want to add and continue with what Sushma was saying. And इसमें मैं फिर से दोहराना चाहती हूँ कि स्टेम सेल का जो जजमेंट आया है वहां कहीं भी नहीं लिखा है कि द रिसर्च शुड नॉट कंटिन्यू। तो रिसर्च स्टेम सेल में बिल्कुल कंटिन्यू होना चाहिए, बट इट इज नॉट टू बी चार्ज्ड टू द पेरेंट्स, एंड दैट आई थिंक इज अ वंडरफुल वंडरफुल थिंग फॉर अस एज पेरेंट्स टू अंडरस्टैंड। क्योंकि जैसे सुषमा ने कहा, आपने भी कहा करुआ कि काफी उमा ने भी कहा कि पेरेंट्स कम टू अस जिन्होंने पूरा गोल्ड, उनका सोना बिका है, घर गिरवी रखा है, एंड देन दे आर बीइंग टोल्ड रिपीटेड थेरेपीज लगेंगे। So, that is not something that we should be put in, the position we should be put in. And I want to just say as a parent to other parents कि आप कौन सी भी थेरेपी ले लो, अभी ये तो अभी के जमाने में स्टेम सेल थेरेपी है, लेकिन क्रेनियल थेरेपी थी, हाइपोबेलिक ऑक्सीजन थेरेपी है, काफी मैग्नीशियम थेरेपी थी एक जमाने में। देयर आर सो मेनी डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ थेरेपीज दैट कम अप एंड क्रॉप अप राइट एज ट्रीटमेंट्स। प्लीज डू नॉट बी अफ्रेड टू आस्क क्वेश्चंस। आप हजारों सवाल पूछिए, अपने जिगर का टुकड़ा आप दे रहे हो फॉर दैट एक्सपेरिमेंट, राइट? सो प्लीज हजारों सवाल पूछिए, फाइंड आउट इफ दीज थिंग्स आर regulated by the regulatory bodies in India, like ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, NMC, National Medical Commission, CDSCO, Central Drug Standard Control Organization, IAP, Indian Academy of Pediatrics. आप पूछते जाइए सवाल, and only when you're convinced कि आपके बच्चे को ये वर्थवाइल हो तभी ही आप करो, और अगर वो क्लिनिकल हो तो आप एक भी पैसा मत दो। This is my request as a parent to other parents, right? But more importantly, I want to say here that as parents, it is our duty to move away from looking at our children as people who can be medically treated. आज अगर आप देखें, इतने सेल्फ एडवोकेट्स है जो खुद पीएचडी है, आईआईटी ग्रेजुएट्स है, खुद पेरेंट्स है, right, who are media people, who are even non-verbal people who write kitabe and all that. There is so much available, correct? So we have to slowly understand and come to terms with the fact that our child is absolutely able to lead a wholesome and wonderful life with the autism. Autism does not make the person lesser. Autism makes the person different. It is not a medical condition to be treated. It is a way of being that is to be enjoyed. तो जब हम ये चेंज करेंगे अपने खुद में, then it will be possible to reach out to all those very many available evidence-based care that are available. So many schools and therapy centers, intervention centers make those available. मैंने खुद भी सीखा है और यूज किया है, मेरे बेटे ने भी यूज किया है, and it has enriched his life. So that is what I think we need to look at. Also, if you see, अभी के जमाने में अगर आप व्हीलचेयर यूजर हो, तो हमें पता है कि व्हीलचेयर यूजर को रैम्प्स और लिफ्ट्स की जरूरत है. अगर विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड हो तो वर्बल स्पेस की जरूरत है. सब चीजें वर्बली बतानी पड़ेंगी. अगर हियरिंग इम्पेयर्ड हो तो विजुअल बतानी पड़ेंगी. ऑटिज्म के लिए किस तरीके से सोसाइटी उनको इंक्लूड करे, इसके बारे में हम ज्यादा सोचे और ज्यादा अवेयरनेस करें, because that will make the difference. Just as all the other disabilities have worked on making it possible for them to be included in society, it is our job as parents, families, and also persons with autism to ensure that what we need societally is made available to us. We are not lesser, we are just different. In fact, different in a very nice and positive way. तो ये अगर हम सोचना शुरू करें, I think that is the main thing we need to do as parents.
Okay, I think, Parul, thank you for that passionate appeal. And I could not agree with you more. I'm requesting Sanjay to respond to some of the ethics of, what happens when a child cannot give consent and a parent keen on treating their child or helping their child wants to give their child a treatment that is not evidence-based. And what about the principle of do no harm? Why is it that we tolerate treatments which are also not proven, like homeopathy, etc., versus something like stem cell therapy? I think it will be really helpful for the parents here to talk about it, because I think all kinds of alternative and complementary therapies are available for various conditions. So if you could say a little bit about that, Sanjay.
Right.
Let me add,
So,
Sanjay,
yeah,
just a
sure.
couple of more things. If you could also tell us a little bit about, I think Uma did talk about it, but if you could also like share a perspective in case it goes wrong. Are there any, examples, or according to you, are there repercussions of also sometimes using stem cell therapy for autism?
Right. So I think there are these questions which are natural. Some of them were asked, some of them have asked as to what about the entire world of alternative therapies? Where is the evidence? Now, that's a very difficult one. And I'm not shying away from the answer, but just to say that if I say that all therapies across all complementary systems of medicine should be subject to the norms of modern scientific medicine, it can be looked at as the arrogance of my own system of learning. And therefore, the way I have put it in some of my writings and also to people who ask me is that, look, if you have every right to try, but please remember, and I'm just repeating what I said some time back, that these therapies are not harmless, they are expensive, but it is your right to try that. Now, I just want to come to the stem cell therapy for autism about a specific point, which is this, that I think clearly when we compare therapies, the more invasive a therapy gets, the higher is the stake and the higher is the level of scrutiny. and of course, to some extent, the more costly the therapy. So therefore, I think the reason stem cell therapy came under more scrutiny was because it's invasive. It's not just injecting some cells, injecting them into the spinal cord. So therefore, you can have horrendous complications, and therefore there are complications described, by the way, and also the expense. But just to go back to the larger question, therefore, do people have a right to say that we will try it? Of course, but does society in general have a right to say that, look, we have examined it, uh, and there is a regulation in healthcare. Healthcare runs by regulation. And as per our understanding of regulation and science, it should not be used. Our courts are saying this, that it should not be used based on science and based on our interest in protecting citizens from wrong treatments. Please remember COVID. Please remember COVID. It's not very far back, right? So I think there is a sense of a collective society attempting to regulate therapies in healthcare from the viewpoint of protecting the vulnerable, because people are at their most vulnerable when they have a bad health problem, and they will go seeking cures. So there are these contesting parallel things which I can't oversimplify. Yes, people have a right to seek therapies, but yes, societies collectively have a right to say, please don't do this. It is harmful because the science says so. Scientists have a right to say, do not use this. Governments have a right to say that we will not allow this. Funders have a right to say we won't fund this, and courts have a right to say that this should not be allowed because it is causing more harm than good. So I think all these statements are collectively true. So nobody is therefore stopping individuals from seeking treatments. But then we live in a society, right? We are not sort of islands. Uh, and I just want to add one more point, which is that finally it is also the question of the role of the medical profession here, because as I said, there have to be gatekeepers, there have to be so if the medical profession collectively takes a stand that this therapy should not be promoted. This is not about parents pushing back. It's a, in this judgment, one of the great things that has happened is that collectively people have got together. But actually, it should be professional organizations, and that's what happens in many countries, who will clearly come out and say this should not be used, and therefore individuals from the profession, because after all, you need a doctor to administer the therapy, right? It is not something that just can be given by anybody. So if a professional body clearly says that this is not acceptable, uh, very clearly to the point where they may actually take action against those who do this, uh, it's likely that those individuals won't do it. So there is a commitment, collective commitment of doctors, of the medical professionals, and that is one challenge in India, and that is why the burden is actually going on to the people on the other side, to parents, to patients, to take up these issues. So I don't know whether I've answered the questions raised, but I think there are many parallel things happening here, and we must understand that as a collective society, there has to be some rules to the game. Otherwise, we will have chaos. So I suspect that the right has to be recognized, but the right of others to warn you that this is not helping you, the right of people to not to help you with the funds if it is not scientifically proven, it also needs to be recognized.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. And I think that you summed it up really well, that there are so many angles to this. I think the purpose of this webinar really was to clarify what treatment is versus what research protocols are, and that stem cell therapy is still possible under a research protocol until it becomes proven. It is possible that it may in the future, I don't know. But as of now, it's not. And until such time, I think we have an obligation as a society to put some guardrails in place for families so that they know when they are going beyond the guardrails. And beyond that, we can't do much more. Karuvaki, I'm handing it back to you. And if there are any other questions that you feel you want to take up in the chat, I think we've answered them mostly in the course of our discussion. As they were coming up, we have addressed them. But if there is anything else that we need to take up, please let me know.
I think, yes, Vibha, you're right. We've mostly covered all the questions, but some of the questions that have come up is that did the judgment actually review the data and scientific publications which were generated? The judgment has actually reviewed a lot of things. It has gone into details of where stem cell therapy is risen from, what does it actually mean? It has gone into details of everything. We have shared a link of the judgment. Please, we request everyone in this group who has questions about what the judgment actually says to please look at the judgment and read it. It's a over 90-page judgment. So the apex court of the country wouldn't come up with something without actually going into details and without having thought about it. They took 4 years to come up with the judgment. They have done research. They have actually put in a lot of thought, and they have come up with a judgment which is over 90 pages. So it has a lot of things. I request all of you to please go through the judgment, find out some time to go through the judgment. Maybe you'll get most of your answers that we actually tried to unpack. I know it's not enough time to unpack such a detailed judgment, but I've already shared Soumitra on the link to the judgment. Please go through the judgment, and you'll get most of your answers in that. I think Parul has her hand up. Please go ahead, Parul. Parul, can you hear us? Okay, I think we've lost Parul, but
Can you hear me?
yes, we can. You can
Oh,
maybe
okay.
switch off your video if
I
that
have,
helps.
I have. Yeah. So, no, just I think it might be useful to for Karwaki, you and or Sanjay or Uma to clarify, Vibha to clarify. It's not just about. I think I'm frozen again.
We can
We
hear
can
you,
hear you.
Parul,
Parul.
we can hear you.
Okay. So it's not just about it being free, but a clinical trial has certain manners in which it is conducted. And that also has to be taken care of. And the judgment speaks about that too.
Right. So when the clinical trial has to be done, there has to be, they have to actually submit the entire plan and the proposal to a overseeing body, right? Of the, whether it's CDSCO or, the NAC SRT. So that is the system that the judgment has asked the government to put into place, right? That these clinical trials have to be done with the approval of a central research body.
Uma, since you're already speaking, there's a question in the chat which says that there are more invasive procedures than stem cell. Then why pick autism out of all these strict measures, and why can't it be applied to other diseases as well? Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, so I will. Okay, let me say that this procedure is invasive enough. Okay, that taking bone marrow stem cells out of whether it's children or adults is a highly invasive procedure. In children, you would have to do it under general anesthesia, likely. In adults, maybe local, but it is very painful. Then again, to give it, introduce them back into the spinal cord by lumbar puncture. Okay, so you're going very close to the spinal cord, and that in itself is so risky. Besides that, before this main procedure, they give injections. They ask them to do PET scans before and after, and all these are very invasive. And this has been commented on that, by even reviewers from abroad, that this entire procedure is very invasive. And the second question about other conditions, well, since this matter came up, of course, related to autism, yes, of course, people who are using this stem cell therapy are using it for a host of other conditions and diseases for which there is no easy cure, or there is no cure at all. Okay. And I mean, the list is huge, but we can't really deal with every one of them. But if there is a legal precedent set, then there is a chance that this could be regulated for the other diseases as well. So we went ahead with autism as an example, as one of the diseases. Of course, it is heartbreaking that it is in children very often, and that is the reason.
Thanks, Parul. And one more question on our chat box is that are there any side effects that are noted? Uh, like, are there any specific answers to that in terms of whether there are actually side effects that are noted, or are you aware of any of those repercussions? Maybe that since you said that it's invasive in nature.
Yes, I mentioned this when I talked also, that in one publication, and this is all published material, that 9% developed epilepsy where they did not have epilepsy before, but they developed epilepsy after the procedure. Okay. Plus, some had increased hyperactivity. Besides, of course, headache, nausea, vomiting, pain at the site of injections, and of course, the danger of infection, which of course it doesn't get reported easily. And of course, even a comment has been made in some reviews that people don't report the true extent of side effects.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ma. If anyone has any
I'm
other
sorry.
question, there was one hand up.
I'd just like to add one more thing as a parent. Going in for a stem
Sushma,
cell
please hold the mic closer to you.
I keep forgetting. So going in for a stem cell procedure, and we know of clinics in and around Mumbai who not only do the procedure, but they also offer behavior therapy, language, speech and language sessions, occupational therapy, and physiotherapy along with the stem cell procedure. Logically, it is very difficult to rule in or rule out the benefits of the other therapies for the child or the adult. And therefore, you have to take that into consideration as well, is that there's a lot of literature behind using ABA, for example, or, any of the other occupational therapy very early on that says that these things benefit as early intervention. And as parents, again, we just have to make an informed choice. Just know that all of, what we're doing and do the best we can.
That's very true, Sushma. Sorry. Uh, I mean, I didn't go into like the entire procedure, but yes, those who are doing this follow it up with, and the word is intense occupational therapy and other rehabilitation therapy for months. Okay, so that, and they don't have a control group to compare with. So that's exactly the reason why you cannot really, it's hard to believe their conclusions.
I think Mercy has her hand up from some time now.
Yeah,
You want to
just a
go ahead
second.
and ask your question?
Can I just say something? I just wanted to say that the purpose of this whole public interest litigation was not to prevent families from accessing treatment that they think will be beneficial to their child, even if it is experimental. But the purpose was really to prevent families, based on our own experiences with families, from being exploited by commercial entities. So I think this was primarily our objective. We are fully all aware of the fact that many times things become proven or acquire scientific evidence after a while. But isn't it our duty to be part of the process that accumulates the scientific evidence and be part of clinical trials that allow us to judge whether it is useful or actually harmful to children? I think that is important. So, fully recognizing that as a parent, of course, you want to try everything for your child, but also recognizing that, as somebody very beautifully said, you are vulnerable when you are a parent and you will do anything for your child. And in that situation, we don't want families to be exploited. And that was the reason why we actually filed this public interest litigation.
We will close in some time. So if anyone has any question they want to, like, people who are actually typing it out and on the chat box, it will be great if one of you wants to actually speak about it. We are happy to take on a couple of more questions.
Hello. My
Yeah,
name
please
is
go ahead.
Masili. I'm from Kenya, and I want to appreciate this conversation. And I just want to say something as a parent, because, yeah, I have seen that actually as parents, we are not given the same rights as the professionals, and yet we are the end users. I happen to be a mother of triplet boys with autism, and I want to ask one question regarding why is it that stem cell for autism is picked up as a major concern when it comes to things like safety, and stem cell is being treated for other diseases? I'm just wondering, when the patient is autistic, does it change the status of safety? That's one question. Secondly, I started doing stem cell for my 3 sons who are very severe, and my story is documented. I attempted suicide so many times. It was chaos. It was unlivable with my sons. It affected the entire family. And since we did, and before that, there's someone who argued that there is no evidence that stem cell is working better than the classical therapies like speech therapy and stuff. But my sons did 5.5 years of intensive classical therapies with moderate improvement. And then when we started doing the stem cell, and then combining with these other classical therapies, because we know that autism has a complex pathology, we got so much improvement. All my sons now can shower themselves, bath themselves, toilet themselves. The meltdowns, the destruction, now we have TV, we have couches, because they would break everything. They can wash utensils, they can wash their clothes, and they are driving in sports. Actually, they are now taking up professional sports. Why is it that now we are being told that, because who is going to offer this stem cell for free if the governments are not actually providing the money for research? So my appeal is for these professionals to really seriously consider thinking about us parents. We are losing our minds, we are losing our heads. It's not easy. I cannot argue that autism is like let's say being blind. Autism comes with a lot of debilitating symptoms, meltdowns, aggression. It is totally different from being blind or hard to hear, and we need something to be done. Thank you so much, and I pray that the reason of listening to us parents will really come to you, so that you can really have mercy on us. It is not easy. We have no life. We have no life. Thank you.
Percy, Mercy, I would like to say something as a parent. Firstly, I would like to thank you for furthering medical research by opting for stem cell therapy. And yes, it is a difficult life. One will not say it isn't, especially when one does not understand what is happening, what our child is trying to convey to us. But I do know that a lot of other ways are also available by which to approach the whole processes of connecting with and allowing your child to be a part of regular society. But again, I would like to say thank you for being a part of the medical research. And there are, and others will be able to throw more light on this, it is possible to apply for grants and it's possible to work on proper clinical trials so that the burden of these trials and uh, clinical research does not fall on parents. Because some of us can afford it, but there are many who cannot, who go through the same difficult situations as us.
Uma, I think it'll be helpful if you spoke about the other conditions in which stem cell therapy is approved. And we do know that it is approved. Again, I want to say thank you to Mercy for calling out how difficult it is for parents, especially with very few options available to them in countries like ours. I do not at all argue that it is very, very difficult. Day-to-day life is difficult. And I think there are such few resources, which is why it is very, very tempting to seek something that will offer a cure or improvement even. And so my heart goes out to you and thank you for sharing your story with us. And I would just request if we could have Uma talk about the conditions for which stem cell is approved, and also say that I do have stories of families who have benefited from early intervention, right? For every family that is not. So I do want to say that we are not hearing those stories here. And we are not hearing stories of families who have spent inordinate amounts of money and not benefited from stem cell therapy. So it's a bit of an unfair tilt to what we are hearing here. And the reason for even pursuing this was because of hearing the other stories that we are talking about. So, Mercy, I think we're keeping our minds open. And as professionals, we have to be very, very conscious of what families are going through. And I hear you and I appreciate your need to do whatever is possible for your children. But I do think we do have a responsibility to tell families about risks, about what is science, and then allow them to make the choices they're making.
Sanjay ji, you have your hand up. You want to add?
Yeah, so first of all, once again, let me say that yes, those of us who have no direct skin in the game, in a sense, it's relatively easy for us to sort of pontificate on many things. But let me say this, that as an observer of some of the groups, and that includes the groups who are part of this petition over the years in India, who have formed groups to support individuals, patients, got people together. They're not just sort of doing this bit about let's say objecting to the commercial use of stem cells, unscientific use. Parallelly, many of those groups are actually fighting for access to good care, and that is equally important. And therefore, these very groups, and there is sometimes suspicion that is there another interest, etc. But these very groups are actually, historically, if you look at, and as I've seen this across the board, these very groups are fighting for access to care, fighting for access to lower costs for drugs, etc. So I think this is a parallel fight, a parallel struggle for access to good care, access to good science, and yet also calling out commerce under the guise of science. And there is no contradiction between these two things. And this must be recognized that this will have to go in parallel. And that's what many of these groups are doing. And I therefore once again say that I joined this petition as a co-petitioner, not because I have anything directly to do with working with autism or for that matter stem cells, but as an observer of healthcare, the way it is being delivered, the challenges. I completely recognize that access is the biggest challenge, and but simultaneously commerce and commerce-led therapies which are taking people for a huge ride, impoverishing them, is also a simultaneous challenge. And therefore, I am where I am. And but I recognize that yes, it's easy for me as a third party to say this.
Thanks, Sanjay ji. Uma, do you want to wrap up with I'll just some of the points that Vibha mentioned as to, can you tell us a little bit about the things that stem cell therapy has actually been proven to be of use?
Yeah. So right now, as told by as the mentioned in the regulations of the International Society for Stem Cell Research, and even in there are some differences also to what the ICMR has also mentioned in India. So worldwide, stem cell therapy is approved for some some blood cancers like leukemias, lymphomas, some non-cancerous conditions like aplastic anemia, some immune disorders. Okay, but there, what is done is that the bone marrow of the patient is that is affected is destroyed. Okay, and then the stem cells, either from a donor or if they are actually taken from the patient, are then put back to repopulate the bone marrow. Okay, and hope that then there is improvement, etc. So that's the way it's called bone marrow transplant, and those are the ones that are approved. Besides this, there are some conditions like, for example, stem cells from skin can be grown outside to make like to grow a patch of skin. Say, suppose a patient of burns, with burns requires skin, but that is not exactly stem cell therapy. You're growing the skin and using the skin for grafting. Okay, so that is allowed, but it's the stem cells that can do that, to grow that piece of skin. Also, in some cases, cornea, that's the transparent part of the eye, can be grown outside the body in a dish with corneal stem cells, and the cornea can be attached. And in India, the ICMR has approved of one product called Stempucell, which is not cells, but it's a product of stem cells. And that is used for what is called critical limb ischemia, meaning peripheral vascular disease. So that's the sum total of it. Okay, so no other disease is it allowed in.
Thanks so much, Uma. I think we can wrap up now. We've tried to answer most of your questions, but really thanks everyone who've actually shared their experiences and lived realities with us, because this really helps us to inform our, as lawyers, it also informs us and like keeps us aware that we need to take into to consideration everything in terms of filing something, the lived realities plus the scientific evidence and expertise of doctors who we actually consulted. And just to make it clear again that before we actually went ahead and filed something, we spoke to multiple doctors and health professional, not just the ones that are here, but we also did our own background research and reached out to people who we thought would be able to help us. And that is which informed our petition, but also like lived realities of parents One of our petitioners was a parent. We cannot name them because it's anonymous and we don't want to reveal it, but we did take into consideration the lived realities also, and we will continue to do that. Please write to us. It'll always help us. We can have more detailed conversations, and maybe in smaller groups to also see how we can work together to make this process better, and how we all can help the ministry to come up with something which regulates. I think one of the things that one of you, Ruchita, in fact, you had, why can't this be monitored? That we can and the answer is there is nothing. There is no authority that can monitor this. So if we say that we allow it, there will be a problem of there cannot be any monitoring. So maybe we can, we'll share our ID with you on chat in a bit, and then you can write to us and see how we can basically work together to make this better. Yes, Kavita ji, we'll try. If you could all put your email IDs on chat, we'll see if we can share this recording as well as the PPT with all of you. Thank
It
you.
will also be there on the Forum for Autism Facebook page because it has gone live, so the recording will be there.
I just want to put in a plug for iPro Bono. This is not the first time that Yash Charitable Trust has worked with them. We worked with them even after this in filing a petition in the Bombay High Court, which also came to a very fruitful fruition. So they're a wonderful group of people and just willing to work for everything that is going to help us lead better lives.
Thank you, Sushma. Okay, so Arjun, if you could put one of our IDs, maybe the communications ID, on chat for people to write to us, or I'll just put it. Yes, so all of you can write to us on this ID, and if there's anything that we can pick up and try to, help you with, or for further discussion, we are happy to support. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. The speakers, Sushma, Parul, Uma, Sanjay, and Vibha, for kindly agreeing to moderate this and doing such a great job at it. And everyone else, Sunita ji, and everyone who was a part of our group and helped us curate this. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you, and
you.
a big thank you to iPro Bono for this entire work and for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.